Hello tankers and tankettes, and welcome to our final winner. The tier 9 and 10 bracket winner, that is. We do have one more replay to go yet. I already mentioned in previous videos that one of the winners was going to be a medium tank, and it is, as I can reveal, a Leo 1. Yes, as driven by Choppy. Now, if you'd asked me to guess a medium tank to be just in any of the any of the three winners, I probably would have picked a Russian one, to be honest. But Choppy's gonna show us that this could be pretty damn good as well. However, there's a couple of things about this replay. One, it's a pre-micro patch replay for 9.4, so it's pretty derpy. It's actually derpier than most of the others I've showed that have been pre-micro patch for 9.4. So it does a lot of annoying skittery stuff with the camera. And secondly, of all the replays we have seen thus far, this is probably honestly the least interesting to watch overall. There were significant portions of that 30 replay that I cut out which weren't particularly interesting to watch, but it got very interesting at the end, and I'm not sure I can even really say that about this match. However, it's going to promise to be a high damage match. Well, it better be, because otherwise why would it have won? And we're going to get to see this amazing gun at work. Now, the Leo isn't the only tank that gets this gun. Of course, it's on the British mediums, because it's a British gun, and it's also on some of the American mediums as well. So it's a very, very nice 105mm gun. He does have a whole bunch of heat ammo, and we're going to see him use, well, most of that heat ammo. I'm not sure if this is just he's got a Clan Wars setup and hadn't changed it, or this is just his regular rollout for the Leo 1. He's also got the chocolate consumable as well. So he's on the heat already. Against an E100 at this range, I can kind of see why you would, because although it doesn't get normalization, it doesn't lose penetration over distance. So while he's firing up at that top northwest corner at a well-armoured target like the E100, it is maybe more likely to pay him with heat. On the other hand, at that distance, you're maybe as likely to just catch his side skirts or bounce off his turret. And he's already bounced one shell off his turret. Managed to bounce a heat shell off that 50B turret as well. Back onto the APCR now. And his team, well, we had a couple go to the hill, but look where they're all sat right now. Lord Mouse gets a bit stroppy with them, and apologies in advance for his language that you might notice in the chat, but it is sort of with a reason. Basically, that is a fairly useless position where those four tanks are at. It is very, very passive, it doesn't help anybody, and there's absolutely no reason for it. If there was artillery, I could understand people being hesitant to press up and spot that flank of the hill, but there isn't artillery. And we already know where at least one of the big tank destroyers is, and there are probably likely to be more big tank destroyers up at that top left-hand corner as well, the top west corner. Anyway, back to the immediate engagement. One T-54 has decided it's a good idea to suicide. The other decides it's an even better idea to block Choppy from actually reversing. And then goes into suicide as well, because hey, if his platoon mate did it, it must be good. So yeah, so much for the OP T-54. So the 50B is still alive, but we know he's alone, crucially. Oh, and he's also, yeah, Choppy has managed to take some fire from the hill. Now look at the message there. Damaged left track, damaged right track. Somehow a single shot from the enemy bat chat from the hill has managed to turn both his tracks yellow. I don't even know, but it happened. We finally have some spots, so he's able to put some damage in, him and Lord Mouse both. 50B hopefully will be cautious. We have an IS-7 and IS-3 that at least have moved up to a position where they could shoot the 50B if he pops up. But they're not even. I mean, that shot the 50B took just then was from the T-54. Choppy moves in and takes him out. 4 minutes, and we've lost 2 tanks per side. This is shaping up to be a real war of attrition. And it's pretty much going to be like that the whole battle through. I mean, he's basically, him and Lord Mouse are, for the majority of the time, going to be working this position, which, as there's no artillery, they are perfectly free to do. And there's no opposition immediately on the other side of this ridge. That's fine. And that was a nice shot. Sets him on fire. And gets the kill with the blind shot. So that's one more tank down. So this is quite a comfortable position to be using. And back to the heat shells, because he's back firing at the E100, and even the heat shells will miss. Waffle Panzer IV doesn't take the blind shot. I thought he might, but decides not to fire a heat shell. I'm not quite sure why he doesn't reload back to APCR at this point. I mean, obviously he doesn't know exactly what his next target is going to be, but he ends up firing the majority of his heat shells, and a few of them, quite honestly, I would say are just wasted, that he didn't need to fire them. He could have just fired his regular APCR instead. But you know, hey, it's his credits, I guess. Maybe he just forgot he was firing them. That can happen. You can sometimes be so absorbed in what's happening in front of you that you forget what ammo type you've actually got loaded. So finally, those 4 people on the hill, they're actually moving up a bit and spotting and providing Lord Mouse and Choppy here with some spots. He has some shots on the M103 on the island, as does Lord Mouse, so they're just going to punish this guy. Again, this didn't need to be heat ammo, but whatever, the M103's down, and a bit of frame rate dirt there. I have tried recording this several times, in addition to all of the micro-patch related derps. I also have really struggled to keep the frame rate up on this. The next step in terms of quality settings would have been turning shadows off entirely, and I don't think that looks particularly good myself, but the frame rate was good enough for the majority of this particular recording that I decided just to use this one, so it will derp in places. Yeah, so rear of backshot also did not need to be heat, and he didn't even hit there. The people actually on the hill, they've all rushed down and they're getting rather badly taken apart, it looks like. Although that gives Choppy a few more opportunities. He's going to take a blind shot at where he thinks the rear of that E75 is. We also know the FV is over there somewhere. The T-54E1 wisely decides that he's going to get some cover between him and enemy tanks. So he's the only survivor of all the tanks that were on the hill. However, they took some tanks down with them. It wasn't all in vain. And the war of attrition continues, because we're now 7-8. We've lost some on the west flank. The other team have lost some on the west flank. We've got some spots as well. We see there a 5120 pressing up. Another sacrifice for all the waiting tank destroyers. But he's lit up a T-34 at least. And again, heat ammo. That did not need to be heat ammo. It really didn't. It's kind of like, at this point, I really would have switched back to APCR and kept the heat for the targets that I felt needed it. But, like I've said, maybe he just didn't realise. He does realise, before he fires all of it, he switches back to the APCR and keeps a couple in reserve. So he does notice in time for that, at least. But it's just a bit of a war of waiting at the moment now. You might argue, and maybe somebody will, that artillery would have made this a much more dynamic and exciting match, but honestly, no. Artillery may even have made this just a draw, but we'll never know, because this game didn't have arty, so that's just purely hypothetical and a bit moot, really. So there we go, enemy FV, very low health, one shot, easy one shot. Again with the heat shells, why? But if you can kill this guy, there we go, nice, another blind kill. That's one less enemy gun, so we've actually tipped it back in our favour now, 10 kills versus 9. So on the east flank of the map, there is an E75 and possibly the Waffle Panzer IV. We don't know exactly which side of the tracks he's on. He might still be in A6, he might just not have moved the entire time. We have, in friendly terms, we have the T-54E1 and an E4, which I think Choppy has just started to notice how inactive that E4 has been the entire match, and it's either Choppy or Lord Mouse decides that the E4 is a bot. He could be, he might be a bot, he might just be a terrible player. So the IS-8 went forward and died, but he lit stuff up. It's just, yeah, trading tanks at this point. And he's down to 3 heat shells. He's managed to do some more damage. We're up to nearly 7,000 at this point, so if you can keep this 105mm gun singing, it really can rack up the damage. It does 390 average damage per shot on a medium tank, and that is pretty nice. It's one of the things that have made the Centurions quite enjoyable to play for me, at least the tier 9 Centurion, of course, because the tier 8 Centurion you get the 20 pounder. is this gun, and of course you get it on the tier 10 as well, the FV, but the tier 10 definitely not as capable as the Leo, purely by dint, I think, of having just a lower speed limit. The Leo is that much more flexible. Anyway, Choppy was looking up at the flank of the hill, and I don't know, was he psychic, or had Lord Mouse or the T-54 maybe, well, it would have to be Lord Mouse because we don't see anything in the chat, so it would have to be like voice comms. Had somebody seen a tree going over? Maybe. Anyway, we'll never know. Maybe if either of these players are watching this replay, which I'm sure one of them at least will be, will know the answer to that, why he happened to be looking and, you know, was able to catch that E75 as he was going up the hill. I'm sure there was a reason. So now the T-54E1's gone back. Lord Mouse has come back to Choppy's position in the middle. 11:10. And it's less than 5 minutes to go now, so somebody's got to make a move. The 704 is now all alone on the east flank. We can be pretty certain that the Death Star is, the west flank rather, that the Death Star is over on the west flank also. He hasn't been spotted at all yet, but he's not shooting the T-54E1 on the back, in the back even, so he's not on the island. He's not where the Waffle Panzer IV is, because Choppy would have certainly seen him or been shot by him or something. So he's got to be the top northwest corner. So they're trying to get this E1 to go over, just spot the Waffle Panzer IV to see if he's still there, basically. And it takes a bit of persuading, but he does in the end. Lord Mouse actually goes down there himself, and there we go, there he is. So that's one shot in. A low roll, unfortunately. I think HE would have done a better job here, to be honest, but it doesn't matter. 2 shots and he's dead. I don't even know if this gun, if it's HE or if it's HESH like the Brit tanks get, because it's essentially a British gun. But I would have to look that up, or maybe Caption Guy will. He's always one step ahead of me somehow. So there's the Jagdpanzer, gets lit up by, I don't even know, that might have been Choppy, but he's taking some serious damage. One in the lower front plate, yes, there we go, he's down, so it's down to 1310 now, or up to 1310 I should say, rather, 5 versus 2. And Lord Mouse, Choppy rather, decides it's time to finally go mobile, to actually use that mobility, because he's not really had to so far. He's just been working that ridge line over and over again. I did say that this was by far the least interesting in terms of action, didn't I? I mean, he's been racking up the damage, don't get me wrong, but there we go. That's only the second time he's been shot at in this entire battle, and had something actually hit him. So the Death Star is very low health, the E100 is very low health, and he's gone. See if Choppy can get one final last bit of damage, but alas, it's not to be. So 9,105 damage on the clock, but obviously that can't be the whole story because we know what the second place was. So we'll have a look. We'll see that he got a high caliber tank sniper and a top gun, and 10,741. So a couple of those blind shots actually connected. It was not just 1 or 2. To have 1,700 damage, that must have been a good, what, 4, 5 blind shots that actually did connect. And if he'd fired blind at that Waffle Panzer IV earlier, maybe he could have, well, it wouldn't have been extra damage really, because he got the last bit of damage on that guy anyway. So maybe not necessarily extra damage, but he might have collected that damage earlier, and it might have made that end game slightly faster. But it doesn't actually matter. So he and Lord Mouse were by far the top of that team. His efforts got him 1,354 base XP. Lord Mouse had 5,000 damage with 900 base XP. And all the way at the bottom was the T110E4 with 247 damage and 1 shot fired. Distance travelled 1.2 kilometers. Yeah, either a bot or an exceptionally bad player, but this was one of those times when, despite the fact that it was effectively 14 versus 15 with that guy on their team, it actually didn't matter. He was able to do quite a lot of damage there. And it is interesting the way that played out, because it was very kind of even all the way along in terms of kills, and yet in terms of damage, clearly it was Choppy and Lord Mouse between them that were doing by far the lion's share from that middle ridge position. So even though, the enemies were taking a long time to die, and even though the kills are quite spread around the team, the next best damage on the team is like 1900. So the rest of the team really wasn't doing that well in terms of damage, and yet the fact that Lord Mouse and Choppy were doing all the damage, that was enough to draw that out. And I'm actually like that. Normally, if you've got a team that's not doing enough damage and you're having to do lots of damage, normally that means they die really fast. But that just wasn't the case. So yeah, I think that was interesting, the way that played out. It wasn't what you would have expected. So Choppy, for his efforts, has won himself a premium tank. And you might be thinking, hooray, we're done with the contests. There's one more to go. Don't you worry, I haven't forgotten that the AMX40 result is yet to come. And of course, being the AMX40 result, I've left it till last because you leave the best until last. Of course you do. I'm sure everyone's just shaking their heads in pity right now, but god damn it, it entertains me, damn it, so that's what's important, right? AMX40 OP forever and ever. Oh, anyway. So, if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and, as always, stay tuned for more.